Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of PHT TV and welcome to my Reference Premier Gen 2 system review. Now, I've had the new Reference Premier Gen 2 system set up in my theater for about 2 weeks now in multiple configurations, and today I think I'm finally ready to give my thoughts. Now, we're not going to get too technical because I did that before. I went over most of the specs and everything in the unboxing videos and in the disassembly videos. Today is just my thoughts on the components and on the system as a whole. Now, I've configured these in several different ways. I've swapped the mains out, I've put the 8000s in the front, I've put the 600s as the mains, I've put the 500s as the mains, I've added the surrounds, I've pushed the 600s to the rear as surrounds in combination with the 8000s, I've done the same with the 500s, I've done 2-channel listening, 3-channel listening, 5-channel listening, 7-channel listening, movies, music, video games, demos, everything that I can think of. The only thing that I do refuse to test in this room is the reflective Atmos. You guys have heard me say this a million times. I do love the reflective Atmos speakers, and in the correct environment, they do amazingly well. But this is not the correct environment. You can see I've got the vaulted, weird, kind of strange ceilings in here, and it's just not the right environment for the job. The ceilings in here would not function well with that type of Atmos setup, and we'd have reflection going in every direction. So that'll be a test for another day or another week or month or whatever. So we'll see. But we did dive into the rest of the system and I will share my thoughts here with you shortly. Before that though, how did I test and what did I use? I used the NAD T778 receiver for all of my tests. It is a great matchup for these speakers with a good amount of clean power. Those are the most important factors: good amount of power and clean power. Additionally, I stuck mostly with movies, music, and games that I was familiar with. This allows me to have the knowledge of what the tracks are supposed to sound like and what they sound like on other devices. I've heard a lot of these cuts on everything from my phone to listening in my truck to a Pro Media system all the way up to Jubilees in some cases, so I'm super familiar with these tracks. Some of the demos that I used were even what we used to test Klipsch speakers when they first came out back when I worked for Klipsch. So what were my thoughts? In 2-channel, I ran a lot of music for our testing playlist. I also tested a couple of movie demos in 2-channel mode. In every setup, I felt like I couldn't get better, and then I moved forward and, well, it got better. I was super impressed with the coverage of the mains with the new horns. The dispersion of the sound was wide and super tight simultaneously, so I guess that's to say that it seems to open up the soundstage and it's more precise, even more so than previously. Now, rocking the 500s as mains first. I'm super impressed with the lows and even the 500s. I think the new cabinet design did a lot for these. I bumped up to the 600s, added a little extra oomph, and then I jumped to the 8000s and was blown away. These guys are amazing. Now, I tried to note anything negative that I could find in these, but nothing came up, at least not just yet. I then moved up to a 3-channel setup, adding in the 500 and the 504, more music, more movie demos, and I'm not going to talk much about comparing the two centers to each other. I want to talk instead about the mix. With the 500 and 600s, everything was perfectly blended with the centers with both the 500C and the 504C. Great listening, especially for a smaller room setup. That said, when I moved to the 8000s, I did notice one thing. Everything flat, everything factory reset on the amp. I did have to boost the center channel a couple of dB in the mix in order to balance the setup. Initial Setup Wizard or manually balancing will take care of this, so it's not a big deal, but I did want to make a note of it. Now, once mixed and balanced and boosted to levels of literally knocking my pictures onto the wall, you can see my Forte 4 poster is still sitting on the ground over there. Again, it had no trouble keeping up whatsoever, so I really don't think it's an issue. It just needs to be a little bit balanced depending on which speaker in the setup you have. Next, I moved to the 5-channel setup, adding the 502S II, which perfectly blended whether using the 8000s or the 600Ms. Finally, I moved the 600Ms to the rear with the 8000s as mains and the 502s as side surrounds. By far my favorite setup, and the system altogether as a whole is what I spent the most time with. I watched a few movies, I ran some movie demos, I did some surround mix music listening, and all over I was super impressed. At some points I was cranking it to around 108, 110 dB on the SPL meter. I did not notate a spot of distortion in these guys. None of the system seemed to struggle in any way. And while there was a lot of moving parts, a lot to cover, a lot of actually physically moving things around to test, I was searching for something negative to say, and I came up kind of somewhat empty-handed aside from the small mention that I made earlier. In addition to sounding awesome, they also look more elegant than the previous generation, at least in my opinion. They're cleaner aesthetically, the new binding posts look better, and they're easier and cleaner for hookup. While I didn't use the Atmos topper, the new connections make it super easy if you choose to go that route. I feel like Klipsch has really done an awesome job in this generation, taking it to that next level. I'm really looking forward to comparing the previous generation to see how the sound varies. Honestly, after these listenings, I'm thinking it'll be a pretty good leap, but I'm curious to see just how far. That's all I have for you today, guys. If you're looking to get your hands on anything we've gone over today, or anything we've gone over in the last couple of weeks, or anything we've ever gone over, check out the Paducah Home Theater website. I'll post a link in the description. Please click that like and subscribe button below, and make sure you click that little bell next to it to enable notifications. This will give you a heads up when new videos drop. Next week, we're going to dive into the Gen 1 versus Gen 2 504C compares. And following that, we're going to look at the 8000 Gen 1 versus Gen 2 compares. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you again next week for another episode of PHT TV. Did you guys see this terrible haircut I got? I'm trying to cover it up. I'm trying to stick to mostly this camera angle so that you can't see my bad haircut, because it's kind of jacked up on this side. Before yesterday, I was all beard facey and hair was super long, but I got a haircut for you guys and they jacked it up.